Hey guys, it's David Clayton again from GuitarBreakdown.com, and today we're going to break down another Michael Landau lick out of a solo on his live CD, one of his live CDs. If you're not familiar with Michael Landau, I'm not going to go into the whole about him on this lesson because I just did a lesson on him about a week ago. I will put the link to that below and as a video response to this video, and you can check out that lesson, and I describe all about who he is and what he does. Chances are, if you're watching this, you pretty much know all that kind of stuff. But if you don't, check out that video. And this lesson, I will put a link below to the live CD that this lesson is based off of. It's based off of a song called Big Bulge, and it's just a real small section of that solo. But it's a concept that he does that I've seen a few other guys do, and it's such a really cool thing. I've seen Alan Hines do this kind of thing. Jimmy Herring does it quite a bit. And it's really a technique that it's a way of bending notes, and it makes it sound like you're slipping and sliding inside the scale that you're playing. And it almost sounds kind of like a slide thing. It's a really cool concept. Now, I have not mastered this concept. This is a concept I'm trying to incorporate into my playing, so we'll be learning together. But I will show you the idea and show you how to actually start trying to incorporate it into your own playing, and then I'll just let you guys go crazy with it. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you in a second. All right, so let's dive right into this lesson. I'm going to try and make this quick. I've said that a bunch of times here in recent videos, but this one I really think I can follow through with that promise. It's very much just a small concept, so I'm going to show you the concept, like I said, and let you go with it. I will show you a little bit about the soloing at the very beginning, the phrasing, and that's about it. So this is basically, he tunes down a half step, so he tunes down to E flat. Like a lot of people, you hear a lot of Van Halen tunes tune down a half step. Scott Henderson plays almost exclusively in that tuning. It's just, there's a sweeter sound you get out of it. Stevie Ray Vaughan used to do it all the time. And there's, the problem with it though, is that if you have a floating trem like I do, tuning down a half step will change your intonation slightly, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to keep tuning and getting this floating again. So if you do play in both tunings, I would suggest having a separate guitar specifically tuned down a half step, and then another one in standard tuning. Most of the lessons I do, I show in standard tuning, even if it is tuned down a half step. So it's just easier. I don't have a guitar dedicated to that tuning, so hopefully in the near future I will, though. Anyway, so this starts out with the minor pentatonic down here, E minor pentatonic. So again, if you're playing E minor pentatonic, you go down a half step to E flat minor pentatonic. Okay? So if you see a video of him playing, he'll be playing in normal starting on the 12th fret. But if you don't tune down a half step, you lower it just a half step. Anyway, real basic stuff. So this starts out in this pattern. Okay? So you're starting on the 4th fret. And the notes are 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6 on the E, A, and D string. And then you slide up to the 7th fret on the D string, and that gives you your flat 5. So, and that's your root note. Now, the phrasing that's going on here is a really cool thing. First of all, he plays a lot. It sounds like he's doing it here, and I know a lot of the times, I've seen him a bunch of times at the Baked Potato, and he plays with his fingers as opposed to a pick. He uses a pick, but he really a lot of times will play with his fingers. Again, because it gets a sweeter tonality, a softer tonality, as opposed to if you hit a note like with your thumb or something, as opposed opposed to a pick. You can hear that pick, especially up here. Now you can get some cool plucking going on as opposed to a pick. You hear that picking thing, and I've talked about that before. So really experiment with figuring out a way to tuck that pick away, however you do it. Some people do it in different ways. And really start figuring out, experimenting, if you don't already, playing with your fingers, because you'll get a different tonality. So the phrase is basically, it's kind of a repeating phrase that's slightly different each time he does it. So the first time he does it, he goes, and that's basically the 8th fret, the 6th fret on the A string to the 4th fret on the D string, back down to the 6th fret of the A string. So, and then he ends on the 6th fret of the D string. So, and the way he does that, he kind of really lightens up on that last note. So, and he's doing this dynamic thing where he's hitting some notes lighter and some notes harder. So really experiment with that kind of thing. The next phrase is basically the same thing. So it starts on the 6th fret of the E string, goes to the 4th fret of the A string, to the 6th fret of the A string, back down to the 4th fret of the A string. So, and now he does pretty much the same phrase. So it's the 6th fret of the A string to the 4th fret of the D string, back to the 6th fret of the A string. Then he goes to that flat 5. So you have the 7th fret to the 6th fret to the 4th fret. So, and it's really the rhythmic displacement that he's doing that makes it, because it's not just, it's, so it's got this, and I'll try and make a transcription of this where you see the rhythm of this, because it's just a really cool rhythmic phrase. Then he goes up to, so he's playing these, he slides up from the 6th fret of the D string to the 8th fret of the D string. Then he plays a double stop of the 8th fret of the D and the G string. Then he slides up from that 8th fret on the D string to the 11th fret of the D string. And I forget the rhythm that he actually plays, but it's the 11th fret double stop on both the D and G string to the 13th fret to the 14th fret, back down to the 13th fret. And then he does that 11th fret again. And then he goes down to that 13th fret on the D string, or the A string, I'm sorry. So that whole thing is. And again, I forget that phrase. But you'll just have to experiment with that. And then on to the cool part of the phrase. I mean, all that was cool. Again, it's very simple. Again, this is down a half step. So this, sliding up, if you think of it in terms of here, up a half step in normal tuning, that's your E minor pentatonic scale, right? Then adding a little tension by going up a half step. But that's just double stops within the minor pentatonic scale. Now, on to the cool part of the lick. It is basically, he plays the minor third. He goes from the minor third to the third, to the minor third to the fourth. So that's 12, 11, 12, 13. So it's... Then he goes, again, if you think of it E minor pentatonic instead of down a half step, it's right in that pentatonic scale. Then he goes to, which is your fifth to your major sixth, right? But again, it's down a half step. So it's 12, 11, 12, 13 on the G string to the 11th fret on the B string to the 13th fret on the B string. So, and this is where the cool part comes. He does this thing, and I think this is how he's doing it. There's one of two ways he could be doing it, but he goes, instead of, he goes back a half step to the 12th fret, and he bends up a half step. So he's really playing this note twice. But instead of playing that twice, he goes, and you get that slick little bend, but it's really quick. So then, again, the lick really is this. But he also goes down to the 10th fret, and he bends that up a half step to play this note. So instead of playing these two notes, he's bending up from a half step below. And you can get these things where they sound sort of out of tune. Instead of, you get, so it's, and then he just walks down that scale again. So after he goes from the, again, we'll walk through this real quick one more time. 12, 11, 12, 13 on the G string to the 11, 13 on the B string. Then he plays the 12th fret bent up a half step and the 10th fret bent up a half step. So it's, then he goes back down to the 13, 11, 12 on the G string. So the whole thing is, then he just walks up the scale from 11 to 13 on the B string, then to the 11, 13, 14 on the E string. So it's, and then he bends that up a whole step. Now, another cool little thing you could try and throw in there, I don't think he actually did, but I think it sounds cool, is when you go to that E string and go from the 11 to 13 to 14, you could, instead of going 11, 13, 14, and then bending, you can go 11, 13, start your bend, and then slide into that 14th fret. So you have, so you get that little bend and the slide at the same time, and it just sounds a little off, but it's really cool, I think.